Well, good afternoon. Welcome to our broadcast and our webinar today. I am Gary Martin with USCutter, and we have Jimmy Lamb with Sawgrass Technologies, and we just want to welcome you to how to get started in the sublimation business. I know it's a huge business now. It's growing and a lot of interest, and so we're glad that you're here. We're going to have some time later on for questions and answers at the end, and Jimmy's going to walk us through the process, and I hope you enjoy it. We're going to just go ahead at this time and turn it over to Jimmy.
Well, thanks, Gary. Glad to be here as always. I always enjoy an opportunity to speak to people that have an interest in the business, maybe adding it in or actually improving what they're doing already. So definitely what we're going to talk about today, as you can see with the topic, I want to start a sublimation business. What do I need to know? Okay. Well, the nice thing about it is it's a fairly simple process to get involved with. If you've ever done something like screen printing, for example, it's very complex. All the different pieces of equipment that you need, the technology, the mindset, the training. I mean, it's pretty intense. So, when you start looking at sublimation, though the word might sound kind of big and scientific, and it is, the reality is it's not all that difficult to get started into it. So that's what we're going to cover here over the next 30, 40 minutes or so. So sublimation, hot and profitable. The sublimation's been around for a long time, but over recent years, it's really picked up, and a lot more people have gotten into it. And it becomes a great add-on to a lot of existing types of businesses, whether you're a sign maker or an embroiderer or a screen printer, a promotional products person, whatever. The nice thing about sublimation is we can bring it on pretty inexpensively and pretty simply, and it opens up the door to be able to do a lot of different things. For example, on the screen, you can see a wide variety of products there, and every one of those has been sublimated. And therefore, it gives you an idea of just how much different stuff that you'll be able to do with the actual sublimation process if you choose to get into it. But as always, that big question is what's actually involved? What do I need to get started? What do I need to be able to make money with sublimation? Well, the Sublimation Advantage, let's take a quick look at that. It's a quick setup. Unlimited colors, low production costs, no special skills required, no color separations needed. I purposely put that one in towards the screen printers out there because, with screen printers, the artwork is a pretty tough aspect. You got to put a lot into that to be able to get your design set up the right way. But when we start talking about doing digital artwork for sublimation, we don't have to worry about that anymore. In fact, if you can get a good quality JPEG put together, that's pretty much all you're going to need to be able to go out and actually start printing with sublimation. So it makes it a pretty quick process, an efficient process, and one that pretty much anybody can do, okay, including myself. If I can do it, anybody can do it. So that's a pretty important part right there. So what exactly is sublimation? A lot of people don't really understand the process. Basically, it's a digital printing process. It's very similar in concept to digital transfers because what we do is we put a specialized ink onto a transfer paper using an inkjet printer to do that. And then we take that transfer paper over to something we're going to decorate. We combine that under a heat press for the item to be decorated. And then when we apply heat and pressure, the inks actually transfer from the paper onto the surface of whatever it is that we're decorating. But it's far more technically detailed than that, okay? Because technically, when we talk about printing in and of itself adds color to the surface of the substrate, the item that's being decorated, okay? In the case of a shirt, for example, it's going onto the fibers that make up the shirt. So when we talk about, traditional printing, that's pretty much what we're doing, a surface type of application. Sublimation is actually a dye process, and dyes are different than the inks, though we'll use the term ink interchangeably as we go. A dye is different, okay? Now, with sublimation, the real difference here is chemistry, because sublimation is a molecular process. It's not us just putting ink on something, okay? It's not like painting something or drawing on something. It's actually, we are physically going to alter the fibers of what we're decorating through the sublimation process. So what happens is we use an inkjet printer, and we have it equipped with sublimation dye, and we print onto sublimation transfer paper using sublimation dye the image that we want to use. And then when we take that over to the heat press and we sandwich it with, let's say it's a shirt, okay? We put it with this shirt together. One of the key things here with sublimation, we're going to touch a little bit more on this as we go, is because it's a chemical process, sublimation only bonds with polymer fibers. In the case of the shirt, that means a polyester shirt. You may be thinking, ew, polyester, I don't want to have to deal with polyester. I mean, nobody really likes that, right? Well, that's not true. We're going to talk more about that too in just a minute. But just for right now, great basic overview here. Chemistry-wise, that sublimation dye will only work with polymer fibers because it's a chemical process. Okay, so we combine, let's say it's a performance shirt made of 100% polyester under that heat press with that transfer, and when we close down that heat press and set it at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and we apply the pressure as well as the temperature there together, what's going to happen is two very distinct things. Number one, the sublimation dye on the transfer paper is going to turn into a gas. Number two, the polymer fibers themselves are actually going to open up kind of like a clamshell. And they're going to open up and actually receive the dye internally into that fiber. When we remove the item away from the heat press and it cools back down, the fibers close up and they contain the sublimation colors inside the fibers. We're actually recoloring the fibers, which means in the case of apparel, something that's permanent, it won't fade when washed, it won't peel, it won't crack. When we're talking about hard surfaces, say signage, promotional products, awards, those types of things, again, it's something that goes into the surface. And being that it's in the surface, that means you can't scratch it with your fingernail because it's not on the surface, it's in the surface. So it won't crack or peel because it's in the surface. So that makes it totally different than any other type of digital printing process out there. And that's what makes sublimation so unique. I mean, that's just part of it, is that whole chemistry aspect. So the polymer connection, as I was mentioning, sounds very limiting. Well, to be honest with you, when you look at the world of digital printing anyway, different inks are engineered for different surfaces. So there's not any one ink that works with every surface out there anyway. So when we talk about sublimation, sublimation is only going to chemically bond with polymer fibers. But the reality is there are hundreds of items that have been manufactured specifically for sublimation. In many cases, it's a wood product, for example, maybe a plaque, but it has a polymer surface added to it, and you're actually able to sublimate that. You're actually putting the image onto that polymer surface, which is part of the wood plaque. So you're holding, when you're done, which looks like a wooden plaque with full graphics on it. Okay, for example, what you see up here, these different types of plaques here, or signs, if you will, because it can be used either way. Those had a polymer surface. There's actually metal products that have had polymer surfaces, manufactured with that metal product. So you're doing like a metal license plate. You're able to sublimate it, and it looks like you sublimated metal, but there was actually a polymer coating to allow it to happen. And then there are some things that are just naturally composed of polymer fibers. Things like mouse pads, flip-flops. There's all kinds of neat things out there that you can actually sublimate because of the fact that they are polymer-based. So keep that in mind, that there's plenty of things out there. Don't feel like it's limiting because it's polymer, but it is a chemical thing, okay? Now, it should be noted that sublimation does not bond with cotton. It only bonds with polymer fibers, so you cannot sublimate cotton items. You can sublimate, in the case of apparel, 50-50 or blends, but it's not going to have the same look. If you actually sublimate a 50-50 tee, it's going to have a faded, washed look to it as opposed to one that's 100% polyester. Okay, but sometimes you like that effect. If you ever catch one of my live seminars at trade shows, I usually have samples of all that so you can actually see what it looks like and see a comparative illustration.
Jimmy.
Yes.
Can I throw something in here?
Sure. Go right ahead, Gary.
One thing that I guess a question that we get asked a lot here, and I really want to reiterate on what you just said, was the polymer coating on these products. When somebody wants to do cups or mugs or something of that nature, some folks feel like they can just go in the kitchen cabinet and get a mug out of there and sublimate it. Not true. It's got to be coated with this special formulation in order for it to work successfully.
Right, absolutely true. And, a company like USCutter is a great source for that. And you know what? Those mugs look just like the ones you get at Target or in a department store. You know, they really do look the same, but they got to have that polymer coating or it's not going to work. So that's important. You'll see examples too of ceramic tile. And again, it looks just like the tile you buy at Home Depot, but it's not. It's got a polymer coating on there. So that is important to remember. And that's just something Gary is so right about. Always make sure that you're buying items that have been manufactured and offered specifically for sublimation, or else you'll be unpleasantly surprised. Okay, you know, another neat thing about sublimation is the degree of clarity that we can reproduce. I mean, if you have a really good quality photographic image, you can reproduce it to the highest level of quality. In fact, you can get such a high level of quality that we have wedding portrait photographers using sublimation for wedding portraits. And you know how important that is. I mean, that product has to be right, and they're charging a lot of money for it. And to be able to do it with sublimation just speaks so highly of what you can actually produce with sublimation. And keep that in mind. You may not be into wedding portrait photography, but the reality is there's a lot of products you can make where you combine a picture with text and with logos, and it gives it a higher perceived value. And let me tell you something. You really can't do photography with screen printing. Direct-to-garment printing does pretty good, but it's not as good as sublimation. You certainly can't do it with a lot of the other processes out there. So, you know, just keep that in the back of your head, because you may be thinking, I don't care about photography, but at the end of the day, if you can do sublimation, you may go knock on the doors of the professional photographers in town. And, you know, a lot of them are looking to be able to actually deliver more than just a picture. They actually want to be able to sell finished products, picture and everything, so they can make more money. So maybe you two can get together and you can actually produce those products for them, and, you know, they can sell through their studio. Just something to think about. Well, let's talk about the apparel aspect for a minute, because again, if you're not really in tune, and I know some of you don't sell apparel at all, so you really don't know what's going on in the apparel world, and that's okay. But one of the hottest new products out there is Poly Performance Apparel. Now, if you're not sure what that is, just think of Under Armour. Okay, these are the guys who've made Poly Performance products so popular. Of course, they help that they've been engineered to be very comfortable, you know, items of clothing. But the reality here is Poly Performance Apparel is polyester based, and sublimation is only going to work properly with polyester. So when you talk about the performance aspect, and by the way, not all polyester is performance wear, okay? But when you talk about the performance aspect, performance means it has a moisture wicking characteristic. And that means that if you sweat during the summer, it wicks away the sweat to cool you. If you sweat in the winter, it pulls the moisture away so you don't feel cold and clammy. So it becomes a very comfortable type of product to wear pretty much year-round. And I know polyester has a reputation of being hot and icky, and it is. But if you have the Poly Performance version, it's a very cool product, and in most cases, it's cooler to wear than cotton. And that's an important aspect. Now, I know you might still be thinking, yeah, but you know what? Polyester, that's that icky, sticky, slick-looking stuff that, you know, my customers don't want that. You know, they like cotton, and I can't sell polyester. Well, don't make that judgment too fast, because let me tell you something. First of all, in the school market, Poly Performance Apparel is very hot. So in the whole world of school, sports, and everything, that stuff's been around, and there's a demand for it. Number two, with some of the new spun polyester products, we have apparel that looks and feels like cotton, but it's actually polyester. And that's important, because let me tell you something. Polyester doesn't shrink when you wash it. Polyester will last longer than cotton. Polyester, you know, doesn't really wrinkle up like cotton does. So it's a more easy care type of fabric. And then if we sublimate it, the sublimation will not fade when you wash it. If you print on cotton products, they're going to fade when you wash them. If you sublimate on polyester products, they don't fade when you wash. So you're actually getting a much better quality item in the long run. And that's important, because one of the things from marketing, got to throw this out with the marketing, is if you're selling Poly Performance Apparel, be careful you don't call a t-shirt a t-shirt. And the reason I say that is a lot of people have a perception that a t-shirt is a low dollar item. And as soon as you say the word t-shirt, they have a perception that what you're selling should be a really cheapo type of thing. So you don't want to call a t-shirt a t-shirt. You want to call it a poly-performance product or performance apparel and kind of work that angle and then point out to them all the benefits, because it is going to cost a little bit more, okay? But in the long term, it's going to outlast anything else they can buy. So, you know what? Polyester is not so bad anymore. So at the end of the day, you got tons of products, applications, and markets out there. I mean, it's just unbelievable all the different things you can do. You know, we mentioned about apparel. We mentioned the mugs, okay? Great promotional products. Opens up the doors there. We have so many people in the awards market, the traditional engravers are switching to sublimation. They're not replacing engraving, but it's an additional thing because of the fact that, look at this type of plaque here. You couldn't do that with engraving. Here I've got the school colors. I've got the football image. I could put the actual athlete's image in there. I mean, there's so many different things I can do to make that award, and I can do it cheaper, okay? I can take, like, this wooden plaque here. When it comes, it's wooden. It's made of wood, okay? But the surface, the rectangular area where you see the Texas Tech, that surface has a polymer-based surface if it's been applied. So when you get it, it's got the wood on the edges, and if you ordered a wood one, that is, and it's got a polymer surface, and then we go and decorate it there. That plaque costs $6 or $7 roughly, depending on the size that you get, okay? Has about 70 cents or so worth of sublimation dye and also the transfer paper cost involved. So we'll say at about 75 cents worth of materials. Let's round that off to $1 for easy math. So maybe I paid about $1 for this plaque, for the materials cost, and then $7, say, for the plaque itself as a blank. I have, what, $8 in it? I can retail that for easily 30 bucks, okay? It's going to take me 30 seconds to print out that transfer image and a minute under the heat press to produce it. And, of course, I got to do a little bit of setup in my graphics, okay? But it's pretty quick, pretty easy, and it's got a significant markup. And let me tell you what, woman over here says Matt, okay, on Texas Tech, just think you have Matt's picture in there. You just raise the perceived value that much higher. And you can do that with sublimation, you know. So we got lots and lots of different things. This is just the tip of the iceberg, all the different things that we can actually do with sublimation, just to give you a taste. Okay, so how does it really work? I gave you a general overview, but the whole idea here is I want to start a sublimation business. What do I need to know? Well, I'm going to tell you what you need to know. Okay. First of all, our equipment needs are pretty basic. And, you know, if you've been shopping around or already involved in some of these other things, like I started my career as an embroidery guy. And with embroidery, you know, a typical single-head embroidery machine startup cost, you know, with software and everything you need, is anywhere from about $12,000 to $15,000. You know, if you want to get into DTG, direct-to-garment printing, you're talking $25,000 on up. Okay? Screen printing, by the time you get your dryers and everything else, you're talking about thousands of dollars. Talk about sublimation. We need a couple of basic components. We need a computer. Raise your hand if you don't have one. Okay, I think we covered that one. You will need some graphic software in there, and we'll talk more about that in just a minute. You're going to need a printer. In this case, we're showing the Ricoh 3300, which is an ideal starter unit for sublimation. And all this is important to understand. This is not a $25,000 printer that was manufactured, you know, from the ground up. This is an office inkjet printer made by a company called Ricoh, been around for many years, and nothing has been modified in this printer. This is the same printer, but it's equipped now with sublimation dye instead of the regular ink that came with it. That's the only difference. And then we also at Sawgrass will supply you, when you purchase this, there's a free, keyword free, driver to help the printer process the ink the right way. But we're not changing it mechanically, okay? So it's pretty much off the shelf. And you're talking, and Gary will talk a little bit more to you about packages and costs, but I'm here to tell you that you can get into that printer, for several $100s. It's not like thousands of dollars. That's the key, okay? And you need a heat press, and you need a good quality heat press, because with sublimation, remember I told you it's molecular. Sublimation requires heat to actually make the chemistry happen. It's not like heat for putting on vinyl, or it might have an adhesive on the back of the vinyl, okay? This is part of the chemistry. So you want a good quality heat press that has consistent heat. It's going to cost you some money, but the reality is it's going to last you forever if you buy a really good quality. You know, the particular model here, I'm a big fan of this particular swing away unit that USCutter carries. Just a good all-around heat press. If you want to do things like coffee mugs and even some water bottles, some of the round things, they also have available, mug presses as well. But that's pretty much it. The concept is desktop. We call this desktop digital printing, meaning everything should fit on the desktop. Reality is that heat press is really heavy, and if you got a flimsy desk, you don't want to put the heat press there. But the concept is we make it fit in a small footprint. That's what we're getting at. Okay, it's a three-phase process. We call it create, print, and press. So let's kind of break it down and help you see a little bit more of the materials and things that are involved. Okay, so the first aspect is a computer. You're going to set the creation is to set my graphics up and to process them. I will need a computer, and I will tell you this. USCutter sells the sublimation ink and sublimation solutions that us at Sawgrass Technologies manufacture. Okay, and we have solutions for both PC and Mac. However, don't assume that you have the ideal unit for doing sublimation. We always encourage you to go to our website and check the minimum system requirements for your computer before you get started, okay? Because that'll help you understand that this is what you need to make the Sawgrass, driver work properly. Not a big deal, but you should go check, because every now and then we run into people that are using computers that are 10 years old, okay? And you probably need to update it, okay? So you can visit our website, sawgrassinc.com, and you can find that if you go into the tech support section, and I'll actually show you where that is in a few minutes. You can find what the minimum system requirements are. So you just want to make sure your computer's ready to rock and roll, okay? Well, in addition to that computer, you need some graphics to make this happen. Now, like embroidery. I came from embroidery, so I relate a lot to embroidery. I had to go buy a digitizing program, very specialized software. You don't have to do that with sublimation. There is no such thing as a sublimation program, okay, per se. We depend on very basic programs for setting up artwork for sublimation. Things like CorelDRAW, probably one of the most popular ones out there for sublimation. Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, even Photoshop Elements. Pretty much anything that can generate a good quality JPEG is going to work, but I wouldn't recommend Microsoft Paint, okay? I mean, go ahead and get the right art, graphic software. It'll make all the difference in the world. But those are the basic ones out there. If you're doing a lot of photography, you're probably leaning into Photoshop, but if you're doing a lot of logos, you're probably going to go more towards CorelDRAW. So it's really up to you as which one you want. In addition, keep in mind that when we talk about good quality artwork, typically 350 DPI, 300 DPI may be okay, 300 to 350 DPI at the correct image size. Okay, now that's an important aspect, because if someone gives you a piece of artwork at 350 DPI, but it's too small for the application, you will enlarge it. When you enlarge it, the DPI goes down, which means the quality goes down. So if you're going to sublimate let's see, an 8-inch by 10-inch image on a T-shirt, you want to make sure that you have artwork at least 8 inches by 10 inches at 350 DPI. There's other things that determine it's good quality or not, but just keep that in mind, because somebody will give you a thumbnail that's 350 DPI, and when you enlarge it, it ain't going to work. You're not going to have the quality. So if you're new to doing that types of things with graphics, make sure you understand that little aspect. There's more to DPI than just DPI. It's the DPI and image size combined together that make it all work. Okay. The next interesting aspect of setting up your artwork is the fact that many of the substrates that you decorate with sublimation are not normal sized and shaped items. And if you're working with artwork in any graphics program, it's pretty much always in a rectangular format. I mean, that's just the way it is, right? But if you look at things, I took something simple here. I took a coaster, okay? Coaster is round, artwork is square. We must make square artwork work on round item. Seems to me that the psychiatrists out there have a test about putting square pegs in round holes. So anyway, just think about that. So moving forward, though, that's tricky, okay, because we got to combine it and reshape it. It's not nearly as tricky as it sounds. Most of the products that you can go out and buy for sublimation, okay, have a template available. This particular coaster is manufactured by Unisub, and you can go to their site and download the exact template for that item. And they have the template available in Corel files, in Photoshop files, and whatnot. So you can download that into your software. If you're using CorelDRAW, download your template, set up your artwork, place your artwork over that template, basically group them together, and use the power clip function, and this is what you get. You get it reshaped and sized to the exact dimensions of that particular template. If you're using Photoshop, there's a layers function you can do. If you're not familiar with that, that's easy. Go visit our website, sawgrassinc.com, because we've got a great educational area, and we actually have a video, 1-minute video that shows you exactly how to do it, step by step. So it's actually a pretty easy process, and once you do it once, you're like, hey, this is great, okay? Because there's a lot of, like I said, strangely shaped items that you're going to have to deal with. Okay, so we got through our creation. Our creation is we got to have the right computer, make sure we've got minimum requirements. We're going to have some kind of graphic software, and we just learned a little bit about shaping things to templates. So now we got our image set up. The next thing we want to do is actually print it. So we're going to send it out to the printer. That's pretty easy. You click and print for the most part. Okay. Keep in mind that when we start talking about the printers, because you're going to have to go out and buy your printer, you can't just use any printer at all. It has to be a printer that will actually support the ink that's used for sublimation going through it. And there's a lot of requirements, and it has to do with the head technology. Therefore, at Sawgrass, we only make sublimation ink for a very limited number of printers because it has to process properly. The main thing you're going to find with USCutter, because we don't sell anything direct. I mean, USCutter is the one that will sell you all the packages and stuff. We just do the manufacture of the ink systems and provide educational resources to help you out. Okay, but with USCutter, visiting their website at uscutter.com, you can certainly find plenty of information there about the printers that are available. And so, if you're asking, hey, will this work with my Hewlett-Packard at home? No, it will not. Okay, you're going to have to buy and set up a printer that supports, sublimation processing. Not a big deal. I mean, these printers are not that expensive. That's the beauty of it. So, keep that in mind, and you can learn more from that website there. And, as to what it is that you're going to actually need. Okay, but I'm going to take a look at one of the key printers that USCutter does carry, and that's the Ricoh GXe3300N, better known as the Ricoh 3300, okay? Cut out all those looks or letters. It's a 4-color system, largest paper size, 8.5 by 14, speeds about 144 pages per hour, whatever that means. What it comes down to is you can do a decent-sized print in under 30 seconds. It has plug-in ink cartridges. So you buy your sublimation ink and cartridge, nice, simple, clean. Plug it in. Printing cost, and I'm going to show you an example that we use, which this particular number, about 72 cents for an 8-inch by 10-inch full-color image, and that is transfer paper and ink cost combined. MSRP, that's from the manufacturer. Manufacturer's just your retail price is like $199 off the shelf. Doesn't include inks, okay? So when you're buying this from USCutter, they're going to set you up the whole package. So you got your printer, your inks, your papers, and everything. The only point I'm trying to say here is very inexpensive, okay, to get into. And that's what we want you to be aware of. Okay, where did I come up with that 72 cents? This particular image right here, we use this to test different printer systems. It printed it as an 8-inch by 10-inch graphic. It cost about 72 cents in ink and media, and print time was 30 seconds. So I'll just show that to you just to give you an idea of, look at the clarity that you can get. Look how fast we can do it. Look how inexpensive we can do it. That's the beauty of this. Now, another part of printing is transfer paper. And what you see there is that big no symbol, okay, because you need good quality transfer paper. You do not want to go to Office Max and buy that iron-on transfer paper, okay? That's not going to work for you for sublimation. And there is a difference between sublimation transfer paper and the heat transfers that use pigment-based inks, okay? So it's very important that you use sublimation transfer paper for sublimation. And there's a whole lot of chemistry behind the paper. I know it looks the same as any other. You wouldn't believe the chemistry going on in the papers. So again, USCutter, they have the paper you need. So keep that in mind. We need to have ink, we got to have paper, we got to have the printer, and the computer aspects as well to make all this happen. So transfer paper. Make sure you have the right thing there. All right, the final phase of production is what we call pressing, obviously using the heat press. And this also illustrates the final piece of equipment we need to make all this happen. Sublimation is very, very dependent upon three variables: time, temperature, and pressure. Now, the standard setting for most sublimation, but not all, is 60 seconds, 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and 40 psi, or really just a medium pressure. A lot of your heat presses don't have a pressure gauge, so really we say medium pressure, and you get a good medium pressure, you should be fine. There are some products where we vary this a little bit. We don't vary it a lot. For example, the apparel, typical with apparel, we go with maybe a 45 seconds, and we may drop the temperature down to about 380, and we'll drop down to almost no pressure whatsoever. So when you're buying some of these different products, I mean, people that make products for sublimation, they can provide you with recommended settings for your heat press to be able to get the ideal, transfer. You're going to see things like mugs, if you want to do the mugs. I mean, just like Gary was talking about earlier with the mugs, if you put mugs in a mug press, you typically are running them from 3 to 5 minutes. There's actually another way to do a mug called a wrap that you actually can wrap around kind of like a drink koozie to hold a transfer on a mug, and you put it in a convection oven, then you're talking 12 to 15 minutes. But the manufacturer will tell you that. So these are our basic settings, but they may vary with some of the different products. So always read the instructions, because I know a lot of us don't ever do that. Okay, with heat presses, we got a couple of different types out there. Clamshell is a very, very popular heat press. And the key with any heat press is you want to get a good quality one. You want one that's going to last a long time. But the most important aspect for sublimation is you want to make sure that the temperature is balanced throughout the platen, okay, because this is truly part of the chemistry process. And it is normal that the temperature will drop off right along the edge, but for the most part, we want a maximum area at the temperature that's been set in there. And we want to know if we dialed in 400, we got 400. There are some presses out there, some very inferior presses out there, I shall say, floating around that are coming from, I'll say, less than reputable sources, that they have uneven heating. And if your heat press has 400 degrees in the middle and 350 in this corner and 320 over here, and you know what, you're going to have uneven imaging in your sublimation. And that's why you want to invest in a good quality heat press that will reliably give you the temperature that you need pretty much forever. Okay, it's an important aspect. So the clamshell opens just like it looks. It's hinged at one end and opens, up and down, like a clamshell. That's why we call it a clamshell. Okay. The second one that's used frequently with sublimation is what we call a swing away, and the swing away lifts straight up and down. Okay, it's not hinged at the back. It comes up and the whole thing swings out of the way. Thus, we call it a swing away. Different people have different, preferences. My personal preference is a swing away. I will tell you with the clamshell, you got to be real careful about where your knuckles are, because when you're opening that thing straight up and you're reaching down in there to do something, you're reaching under the heat, and if you're not careful, you might fry your knuckles. Swing away, it moves out of the way, so you don't fry yourself. So anyway, talk to Gary, talk to the guys at USCutter. Take a good look at these, and buy the right one for you. Considering size is important. I know that's so cliche, but anyway, size is important because, I tend to go with the largest heat press that my budget will afford. And, so I can do big things. I know a lot of people say, I'm not going to do big things. So I want to go with smaller ones, cheaper. But keep in mind for production that if I'm doing smaller things, let's say that I'm doing coasters. I'll just use a coaster as an example. I don't want to press one at a time. I can actually print out a sheet of transfer paper that has multiple coaster placements already on it, because I can probably easily have 6 to 8 coasters on one sheet of transfer paper. And that means I'm actually pressing 6 to 8 of them all at one time. So you get more efficient with your production when you have a bigger press, because you can put multiple things under it at the same time. It's one of the things to think about. And then if you're going to do things like apparel, obviously, you got the bigger area to work with. So, those are the kind of things you think about. You got to think about reliability, temperature control, and size when you're buying that heat press. They pretty much all work off 110 volts. I'm talking about 223 phase here, so you don't have to go out and rewire your house if you're starting in your garage. So that makes it pretty clean and simple and easy to use. Then they also have cap heat presses. There are caps out there we can sublimate. Those awful trucker style caps, most of the trucker style caps actually have a polyfoam front. And because you have a foam front, it's, available for doing the sublimation. It can be a little bit tricky though, but you know what? Cap presses are there. If that's the direction you want to go, you can get a cap press and you can sublimate caps. The mug press we mentioned earlier, it's designed for round items. You put the mug in there and you latch it down and you sublimate the mug. In a lot of cases, you can get water bottles that have a coating on them that will fit in that same little press. So you can do some extra things with it. And then I mentioned that alternative, which is called a wrap. And a wrap is basically, it wraps around, holds the transfer against the mug. You put it in a convection oven for 12 to 15 minutes. And, it'll cook it. Okay. Takes longer. Don't use your regular kitchen oven. Okay. Use a separate convection oven that you don't normally use for food. 12 to 15 minutes is a long time, but you can actually put multiple mugs in there. So it's just something to keep in mind. Okay, so when we're buying our heat press, really and truly your heat press is your biggest investment, because if you're buying one of those nice swing-aways I just showed you, you might be talking about it being up there at somewhere around maybe $1,300. I mean, I'm sure Gary can quantify that for me, but I think it's in that range.
Jimmy, there are some, you're correct when you talk about the swing away. They are a little more expensive, but there are some alternatives as well. We've got we can talk about this later, but a 15 by 15 swing away that is an excellent machine for about $350.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yeah, so there are some areas there that you can get in really good starting equipment to get you going till you're making some good profits, where you can upgrade to a better enhanced piece of equipment.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm throwing out the $1,300 one when there's a much better alternative for getting started. So our summary of our equipment needs: computer, probably got that covered, some graphic software, heat press, and as you just heard, ranges start down around $350 and then work their way up, and the printer. And I'm sure that Gary has some pretty good packages that can get you into this for a very decent amount of money. And that's the key. We can get into it low cost and start making some money. In fact, here's just a look at what their website looks like. If you haven't been there, visit the USCutter website, because you can see there's information about the sublimation paper, the blanks, the apparel, sublimation inks, the printers, and the heat presses. So all that information is right there at your fingertips. So, when you really sum it up, it doesn't take a whole lot of investment for getting into the sublimation business. Okay, very low cost, but when you look at what you can put out with it, it's unbelievable all the different things that we can do. And the beauty of this is, as I tell people all the time, if you already have a business going, you have customers that are coming and getting whatever it is you're selling, but they have other needs too, and there's a good chance that they're leaving and going somewhere else to get the other needs, fulfilled. And in that case, they're taking their money with them too and going other places. If you can suddenly fulfill more needs by adding sublimation, you can keep them there longer and have them spend more money with you. And that's your ultimate goal: make more money. I mean, you can't go wrong with that, Okay, so let's say that you have got in, you've bought the equipment. How do I set it up? It's not hard. Okay, what we always do is recommend that, certainly the guys at USCutter can help you, but you can also, because you want to get that software driver, you want to be able to get the software driver for your system. If you go visit our website, it's pretty straightforward. You want to go to the website. I'm actually going to do that real quick for you. Just give me a minute here while it switches over to the website. So you've just gotten your printer in. It's just come in. The USCutter guys have gotten that printer to you. You got your inks, everything. You're ready to set this thing up. What do I want to do? Well, you want to go to, you want to say thanks, Gary, but you want to go, if you go to the Sawgrass site, if you're buying the GXe3300, that's using the Sublimation R, it's right there on your package. So go to tech support, Sublimation R, you'll see the Ricoh GXe3300, and then look at everything we have on there. We got our power drivers. We got that minimum system requirements. Remember, I told you that earlier. That's where you'll find what you need for your computer to manage this software driver. installation and configuration instructions, installation and setup videos, troubleshooting tips, and a whole bunch of other stuff there too. So simple as going to where it says power drivers, and you would go down and find yours, GXe3300, and then from that point, and I'm not going to do it here, we can actually download it right to your system and install it. It's pretty easy to do. I can do it. Anybody can do it. And if you have any questions on that or you're not sure what's going on, again, remember that on our tech support page for our printer, we have installation and configuration instructions and installation and setup videos. So everything's there to tell you how to set, we got videos on how do you put your ink cartridge in. What do you want to do before you turn on your printer? All that's there is free. You just go there. It's there 24/7, walks you right through, and you shouldn't have any problems. This is really easy to set up, but we do want you to follow the directions. For example, do not load the Ricoh ink in first, okay? Load the Sawgrass ink in, because if you put the Ricoh ink in first, you're going to have to flush it all back out before you put the Sawgrass sublimation ink. So that's one of those really common mistakes people sometimes make. Go follow the instructions. That's where they all are, and that'll make it easy for you. You shouldn't have any problem, really. It's easy. Okay, so
Jimmy, I
yes.
always with our customers, the one good thing about Sawgrass is the technology that they have available, and I want to commend you guys on this because it is so helpful. When I set up our demo equipment, I went in, sat down, and looked at the videos, and I mean, you could just write down step by step as the videos are being played what I need to do next, what am I going to do after this, and I mean, it leads you right straight through the whole process, and it makes things so much easier being able to see it done, listen to how it's being done, and then just do it yourself. And that part you just now said about the not including the OEM inks in that machine. I've had people that have called with questions and problems. Oh no, I've messed my machine up. Well, we can get it fixed. We can flush the system. But the one thing you do not want to do is put those OEM inks in that machine.
Yep. Absolutely. So that'll take you right through. I mean, it's pretty simple. We wanted to make it easy for you. I mean, we have our tech support staff there every day, but we're not 24/7. So the idea is we make it work for you on your schedule. All right, so once we figure that out, next thing we got to figure out is, well, how do we sublimate, okay? I mean, what am I supposed to do? I mean, you said it was easy, and I understand, but really I don't know where to start. Okay, not a problem. Because we have yet more information. We really have worked very hard to provide you as much information as we can to help you do what you need to do, okay? And you can go straight to our website here, and take you back into the website again. You'll see a tab that says Education and Events. That's your key to learning everything you need to learn. You click on that, and you'll see that we have, for example, webcasts, and these are recordings of past webinars that we've done over the last couple of years. There's a lot in there, okay? So that means if you want to go watch a webcast on how to sublimate a poly-performance shirt, you can do that. You want to watch one on pricing, you can do that, okay? You can watch them online, or you can actually download them. We don't care. There's no charge for any of that. It's just, free access. We have how-to videos. And the how-to videos, for example, will provide you a lot of these step-by-step instructions when you go in there. Like how do I do acrylics? How do I do ceramic tiles? How do I do coffee mugs? There's a couple of different ways to do coffee mugs, by the way. So you can see all these different things there that are available for you at your fingertips anytime that you need them. And that's what we're trying to do there with that education site at the Sawgrass website. And we encourage you to take complete advantage of that. And while you're visiting under Education Events, a couple other things just to note. We have listings of upcoming trade shows, and we suggest that you attend some trade shows, get a chance to take some seminars there and network a little bit. Seminars that we think might be of interest to you coming up, we list, and a lot of those are at trade shows. For example, I will be at the DAX Minneapolis show next weekend, actually doing one on sublimation amongst other things. So that's all listed there. Our how-to videos, But one of the neat things down here is go down to the Sublimation 101 guidebook, because this is a wonderful ebook, no charge for it. It's about 65 pages, and it has a tremendous amount of good, clean technical information for you, and you can download it at no charge. Okay, I will tell you this, that to access that, to access the webcast, they're stored in a different location because they're physical downloads, and you will actually have to register the first time you go in. There's no charge or anything. You just register, and you need to get a password, and you come and go as much as you want. So this is why we're making this free to you. You may not have even bought a system yet, but this is free for you to go in and download and keep for yourself. So take advantage of that, okay? The resources are there to help you out. It's just a matter of you going in and taking advantage of what's available to you. Okay, some of the other things to keep in mind, you always want to do that continuing education kind of thing, so continue to learn. For example, on the education site, we also have listings of the latest and greatest magazine articles that have just come out with links to them, so you can read them. We also run a blog called How to Sublimate, found at howtosublimate.com. Okay, again, this is just giving you good business insights. A lot of good articles, appear there as well about sublimation, making money with sublimation. If you're into Twitter, and you really should be, because Twitter is just a great way to get a good stream of information in a very minor, small format. That's what I like about it. You don't have to read a paragraph. You can't put a paragraph on Twitter, so it comes through quick and simple. Use it as a link somewhere. We encourage you to follow us on Twitter and keep up with what's going on. We don't really send out a lot of sales stuff. We really try to send out good, useful information of what's new, what's interesting, what's profitable, those kind of things. If you're into Facebook, same thing. We have a Facebook site, and we encourage you to come to the Facebook site and follow us here. And we do some neat things. We interact. We get your opinions on things and whatnot. It's a good way to get feedback for us. So it's just one more way to learn. So anyway, that brings us pretty much to the conclusion of what I wanted to cover today. Well, that was a lot, actually. Now I look at the clock. But the point being is, sublimation is easy to get into. It's a profitable business. It's not difficult to do or to learn. And there's plenty of resources there at your fingertips to help you out. Your starting point's USCutter, and then keeping in mind that Sawgrass, we back up USCutter and provide as many resources as we can, as we are the experts in sublimation, and we want to share that with you. So, Gary, I'm going to turn back over to you here, and I'm going to start taking a look at some of the questions that have come in, and I'll let you talk to everyone a little bit, and then we can take some questions.
Great. Jimmy, man, I really appreciate everything you've done here. Excellent webinar. A lot of good questions and statements being made here, and I think it's going to really help a lot of the folks get started with this. When I started moving into sublimation and looking at this as an alternative for us to bring on, I was amazed at how low end we could get customers started and how easy it is to get people into the business. When you look at being able to do promotional pieces and marketing for customers, key rings and all of the things that you showed on the slides, it's just amazing what you can do with the sublimation, how quick you can do it, ones and twos offs, and you don't have to go through a whole lot of inventory or keep a lot of inventory on hand. So sublimation is a great way of doing it. When you look at the end product and it's finished, it's come off that heat press, how sharp and crisp those images are, you just be blown away by the abilities and what you can do. And having a pricing structure set up with the equipment that we have, I really believe that folks are going to be excited and ready to get into this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we want to thank you guys for being with us today and taking the time to sit through this webinar. I'm going to turn it back to Jimmy. We've got some questions, I hope.
Yep, well, we got a lot of questions here, and some of them are duplicates, so that's nice. I can answer 2 or 3 at the same time. First question, will this PowerPoint be available to us after the webinar? Not the PowerPoint, but the webinar is being recorded, and once this is completed, the recording will be delivered to USCutter. So that'll be kind of up to Gary as to where that's going to be placed, but I'm sure he'll have it in a place where you can see it as many times as you wish.
Yeah, we have a, just FYI, we have a location on our website that says videos, and all you got to do is click on that. There's a lot of informational videos on there, including webinars that we've done with Jimmy and other areas as well. This one will be placed up there at some point in the near future.
Excellent, and typically it'll be over to you within about 24 hours, so you can start working with it from there. Okay, what about spray-on polymer coatings to be able to put on products that aren't coated already? And you're laughing, so I'll let you take that first, and then I might chime in as well.
Okay. Get that question a lot. People are looking for an easy way out, you know, a quick way out. It's a great idea, but the concept just really will not work. And the reason for it is this polymer coating is baked into the finishes of these products, and there's just really no way that you can do that successfully and be able to have a permanent image into that substrate that you're transferring onto. Keeping in mind, like Jimmy said a moment ago, the heat is really the supreme element in this thing. It bakes it into the product, and with that polymer coating, it has to absorb into that thing. So if you don't have a good layer of polymer on this thing, you're not going to be successful, and you don't want to give somebody a product and them be really proud of it, you be proud of it, and 2 weeks later they bring it back because it's washed off or it's cracked, or, you know, you want to do it right.
Yep. And, you know, the other thing, too, that people don't realize, because there are some kits out there. I mean, there's some spray-ons and some paint-ons, but you have to have a consistent coating of a certain depth from one end to the other. And some of these products are actually sort of a clear coat type of thing. And, you know, what I liken it to, I tell people, listen, have you ever done spray painting before? Have you ever tried to spray paint white on, say, a dark blue surface? You see the runs and the gaps. Can you imagine trying to put a clear coat on and making sure that we had complete coverage? I mean, you know, when these guys manufacture this stuff, I mean, it's actually run by computer-controlled equipment to be able to get the coatings done the right way. So there's really a lot that goes into it, just like Gary said. Okay, can you talk about the way the image looks when it prints on the paper? Here's what they're referring to. With sublimation, unlike other transfers, when you print the image out onto the transfer paper, it does not have the same color vibrancy as it will have once it goes through the heat press. So when it comes out of the printer, it tends to have sort of dull, muted colors that will scare you the first time you see it, because you're like, that's not my image, okay? But once you go put it under the heat press and the chemistry all takes place, the combination of the heat and the inks together, then you'll get the right colors. So
yes.
Don't be surprised. Don't be worried. That's the main thing. You know, I get this question all the time, and I'll throw an answer. And Gary, if you have one, you're welcome to it as well. Approximately how many full-color 8-inch by 10-inch transfers, such as the one you showed, can you get out of one set of inks on the printer you just showed? And there is no magic number there, because the amount of ink flowing through there is controlled by the image itself. And by the way, if you have a really, really high DPI, sometimes people put 1200 DPI on an image, the human eye can't see that difference in quality after you get above about 350, to be honest, in most given situations. And people that think a little is good, a lot must be better. When you go to like a 1200 DPI image, you really aren't going to see the difference, but you're going to actually use more ink, and it's going to, you know, use up a whole lot of file memory. It's going to slow the printer down. So there's just so many variables. It's really impossible to say how much ink you're going to get out. You know, people used to ask me that with embroidery thread. You know, how many designs can you get out of kind of thread? Well, you know, there's too many variables for me to tell you. Gary, you have any comments on that?
I think you answered that well. It just really depends on the size of the image and how much ink saturation you've got that's covering. If you've got a small area, well, naturally, of course, you're going to get a whole lot more images out of that ink cartridges than you are if you're going to, you know, just really saturate that ink. And when we talk about saturation of ink, it does not necessarily have to be like the DPI setting of 1200. It can just be some massive solid blues or blacks or whatever. You're going to consume more ink that way.
Yep. Absolutely. So I mean, there's so many variables in there. It's really almost impossible to designate that. Okay, what's the difference between R and IQ ink? We do support some Epson printers at Sawgrass. The R means it's for Ricoh, and IQ, I know you would think it's E, but IQ has to deal with Epson printers. So the main thing is you just buy the ink that you need for your given printer. If you're getting the 3300 Ricoh, you're always using Sublimation R4 3300. Okay, that's pretty much what that is. Let's see. Can you use it on 50-50 blend cotton shirts? Yes, you can. It's going to have a faded, sort of washed out look compared to 100% poly. Also, the first time you wash it, if it's a blended shirt, the first time you wash it, it will fade a little bit because there's some ink that's artificially sticking on the cotton that's going to wash away. It won't fade much, but it'll fade a tiny bit. But you know, that can be useful. You can get some really good looking retro looks, as I sometimes use that word, by putting sublimation on, say, a 50-50. Just, you know, but just make sure you don't put a picture of grandma because she's going to be disappointed. Not going to have the color clarity that she wanted.
Jimmy, I know that this is, you know, we're doing this for sublimation.
Yep.
But just take that answer just a little bit further. There is a process in which you can use 50-50 cotton or 100% cotton and do shirts, and that's the chromoblast inks.
Yep.
So, you know, there is, if there's someone out there that's really interested in that and wants to do it, they can contact me, and, you know, we can walk them through instead of taking the time to talk about the differences in the two systems themselves.
And telepathic you are, because that was the next question. What is the difference between chromoblast ink and Sublimation ink? And basically, chromoblast was engineered for cotton-based products, okay? And Sublimation is sublimation dye. So Sublimation's only for polymer or polyester type of products, whereas a chromoblast, just like Gary said, is for 100% cotton, it's for blends. It's a different chemical formulation. It actually, on the surface, it looks exactly the same because you print it on a transfer sheet and you put it in a heat press about the same temperature. But chemically, it's different from sublimation. So chromoblast is designed, again, for natural cotton fibers, works great on blends, whereas sublimation is designed for polyester and polymer fibers. Works okay on blends, but not as good as, you know, the chromoblast would.
Yeah, and if you'll let me, I'll take this one step further
absolutely.
again. With the system, I've had, and you know, there may be a question out there, I don't know on this, but there have been people that have asked the question, if I get one system for the Sublimation, can I get chromoblast inks later on and run that through there utilizing the same system? And I would recommend no to that. And the reason for it is because you're cross-contaminating. As Jimmy said, there are two different types of ink formulations, and you're cross-contaminating those inks in that line, and you're going to get a mess when you come out with a finished product.
And actually, that leads to another question, because somebody was asking about flushing inks. And, you know, what Gary says is 100% correct. I mean, technically, I'll just tell you that you could use both inks in one printer, but you got to flush so much of the ink out, you're going to waste it. It's not worth the trouble. I mean, the printers are so inexpensive. If you want to do a lot of cotton products and you want to do sublimation, buy two separate printers and keep them with the two separate inks all the time.
Yes.
You know, if you need to flush ink out for whatever reason, Sawgrass Tech Support can help you with that, and I'll leave it at that. What a lot of people don't realize, and this also throws people off the first time they set up a printer, is inside the printer there's tubing and there's reservoirs that you don't see. And when you put new cartridges in, it has to charge the printer, and it takes a lot of cartridge ink to charge the printer. You know, and that throws people off sometimes. Well, where'd all my ink go? Well, it went inside the printer. And the reality is, if you had to flush that out, you could easily be losing 50% of a cartridge in the flush process. And that's just not worth it, you know. So I do exactly like Gary said. Keep two separate printers. It's much easier that way. Along the same lines, will the ink clog if it isn't used on a regular basis? Absolutely. Every ink will eventually dry out if you leave it there long enough. Okay, and different ones have different dry out rates, but that's going to happen. So lack of use could cause ink to dry out. The nice thing about the Ricoh printers is the Ricoh printers have a maintenance program in there inside the printer, not inside the computer, inside the printer itself. If you leave it plugged in and turned on, it periodically is going to do head checks, which is going to burn a little bit of ink, not much, a little bit, but it's going to manage that so it doesn't dry out. A lot of printers don't do that, and they just end up drying out. So that's one of the big features of the Ricoh. Here's a question specifically for you, Gary. Is USCutter going to be adding additional sublimation product blanks?
Yes, we are in the process now of bringing on a really nice variety of inventory for this, and I'm looking forward to it. As a matter of fact, we just submitted about 4 weeks ago my list of want-tos, my Christmas list, I guess, or wish list of products that we wanted to bring on, and those have been ordered. So definitely look for those in the very near future on our website.
Okay, excellent. So I'm noticing my color isn't as vibrant as I feel like it should be. Any suggestions on that? And yeah, I mean, there's several different things that could be affecting your color, and we didn't really talk about color management here today because it's a subject all by itself, and it might be something that USCutter would like to do, in the future. There are different ways to be able to manage your color to be able to ensure you're getting right vibrancy. And I can tell you right now, if you actually go to the Sawgrass website, sawgrassinc.com, and you go to webcasts and you click on log in to watch videos, first time you got to log in, you got to set up a password and everything, but then you can come and go as you want. We do have some webcasts in there on color management which talk about how to better set up your colors. It talks about how to use the power driver, and the power driver is the software driver you will download when you buy your system to be able to help you manage colors better with your printer. Okay? There's also settings in your printer. It also tells you how to use the ColorSure color palette, because there's a lot of science in making color management work. And I can kind of leave it at that. I know that's leaving you hanging, okay? But I would also encourage you can follow up with me. If you want to send me an email, I'll go back to the email screen. By the way, on your screen right there, we were talking about where would you find this video and other videos. Here's the USCutter website, and you can see, just like Gary said, there's video. So that's how you find where the videos will be, where this one will actually be. And just going back into the PowerPoint slides, there's my email. So, if you have a question more about my color isn't quite, email me, and I'll get you set up with one of our tech support people, and they'll walk you through and help you out with that, okay?